Hi guys, how are you today? Welcome to Mon Analysis, a channel that mostly analyzes Taylor Swift songs. For a background, I am a Swiftie since 2010, and the album that actually made me a Swiftie was Speak Now. So the first song that I ever listened to was Back to December that actually made me want to be a Swiftie. So I was still not a Swiftie back then, and it's not actually the first Taylor Swift song that I listened to. I actually think, or if I remember it right, it was Love Story, White Horse, and Teardrops on My Guitar. Those were the first Taylor Swift songs that I ever heard, but I wasn't a fan back then. But then, in 2010, when I heard Speak Now as an album, and I heard Back to December, I think that was the one that actually turned me into a Swiftie. Primarily, if this was a movie, but sadly, it's not anymore part of the Speak Now Taylor's version album. So anyway, enough with the introduction about myself. What we will do for today's video is to analyze mine, Taylor's version, as the first song in this or in the Speak Now album. So how will we do this analysis? So first, let's start with the title. If you're not aware of the song, if you don't know the song, which is a bit impossible, what we can mostly do in terms of lyrical analysis is to first, of course, take a look at the title. Now, before Taylor's version came to be, it was just called Mine, right? And it was already so good at this point because what it tells us is that there is something about this song that indicates ownership or something that is basically with the speaker's ownership or the speaker's or something that the speaker owned rather. But now, with the addition of the Taylor's version in the title, what we can infer is that it's something that is much more, let's say, meaningful because this is probably something that Taylor owns, right? From the title itself. If you do not know the history about her masters, you probably or you probably haven't heard it, which is also impossible. But basically, Taylor is re-recording her songs because she wants to own them because she doesn't own the old ones. They were stolen, quote unquote. And then with this addition of the Taylor's version, what we can see is that she is now reclaiming what is hers. She is now calling it mine, which is really something just to take note about with the title itself and why this is such a great, let's say, starting point for the album. Although we didn't know that this will be happening back in 2010, this is just a good Easter egg for that one. Okay, so if we're to, let's say, just take a look at the song itself and just analyze the title as, let's say, mine, going back to what I originally said, what we can infer here is that this is something that the speaker probably owns, or it tells us that the story may be something that is about an ownership or what can be called mine. Okay, so now let's go to the first verse. Let's read it together. What we can see here is that you were in college working part-time, waiting tables, left a small town, never looked back. So from the start of the verse, what we can already say or basically infer is that the speaker is talking to someone who is still in college, very young, and is working part-time to probably make ends meet. Because what we can see here is that that person left the small town and never looked back. So probably this person came from a small town, a small family, just a simple life. But then, in order to basically, let's say, be in college, this person started to work part-time through waiting tables, right? So that already gives us an idea of the given characters that we have in this given song. Okay, then comes the next line, which is, so basically first we were introduced to the person, you, which is the speaker, or which is who the speaker is talking to. And then we now have what the speaker is. So basically we're given a description of the speaker being, I was a flight risk with the fear of falling. So this line is actually really good with the speaker basically saying that she or he is actually a flight risk with the fear of falling. So what we know is that this person may be afraid of falling in love because of what is actually stated in this fear of falling part, and that she or he is basically a flight risk. So there is no commitment there. It's possible that she will eventually leave because of that fear of falling in love, of believing in it. And that's actually backed up by the second statement here of wondering why we bother with love if it never lasts. So probably there was something that happened here telling us or giving us an idea that the speaker may not believe in love because something happened, as it's backed up by the statement, if it never lasts, right? So something must have happened that the speaker saw because it never lasts. It probably is going to end anyway, so why fall in love? And this line, just going back to the third one, is actually a good use of alliteration for the consonants F. So we have here an F here, an F here, and an F here. And it just sounds really good with the flight risk sound and then the fear of falling. So that's just really, let's say, that really flows to your tongue really well. And that's good songwriting for me right here. Also, with the use of a contrast with the word flight and falling. So you're basically flying and then you're falling is also a good, let's say, writing style. In essence, even though what it actually means is just the same thing, a flight risk and actually fear of falling, right? So that's really, really creative right there, just in the first verse alone. And now we go to the pre-chorus where the speaker says, I say, can you believe it? As we're lying on the couch, the moment I could see it, yes, yes, I could see it now. So we're taken into a scenario where you see, or we actually see that the speaker and the person that speaker is talking to are both lying on the couch. So this is good storytelling again, because from the first verse we saw that the characters were built based on the descriptions of how they are. Basically, the person the speaker is talking to is actually in college and is trying to make ends meet, and then she, as the speaker, is actually afraid of falling in love. But now, going to the pre-chorus, what we can see here is that they are now both lying on the couch, and then at this moment is when that speaker can actually say, could you believe it? I could see it now. So probably they are together based on this one, and they can see a future in this setting, because what we can see is that, yes, yes, I can see it now. So it's like answering the question of, can you believe it? With the yes, yes, right here of I can see it now from this point. So let's see now what's the next one. So going now to the actual chorus, which is one of the memorable parts of the song, of course, we get to the classic Taylor Swift introduction of having the words, do you remember, together. So we are taken to a flashback. So Taylor likes to do those types of things where she will tell a story, she would build characters, and then going to the chorus, we will be using the words, do you remember, to take us to a specific history of them, and we will now know the background of what's happening. So what we get here is that, do you remember we were sitting there by the water? You put your arm around me for the first time. You made a rebel of a careless man's careful daughter. You are the best thing that's ever been mine. So in this chorus, we now know that whatever fear the speaker had initially was now out of the picture, because she decided to actually go into the relationship. That speaker fell in love with this person who basically made her a rebel in this point. So going back to the fear of saying, wondering why we bother with love if it never lasts. From what we can see here, she is probably afraid of falling in love because she is a careful daughter of a careless man. So there might have been something that happened in her childhood, seeing that her father is actually careless, probably with love, probably with how he was handling her mother, that made her a careful daughter and made her a flight risk with the fear of falling. So now she was a bit more careful. But then, as they were sitting by the water, and the person that the speaker was talking to put his or her arm around her for the first time, right? We are actually given the context that finally she had let her guard down and decided that um, she is falling in love for this case. So this gives us an imagery of them sitting there by the water with a person putting his or her arm around her and then letting all of her guards down, finally falling in love and being a rebel from being a careless man's careful daughter. And saying here the iconic line, "You are the best thing that's ever been mine." So probably if you're in a relationship, you would have related to this, or you would have dedicated this song to your significant other, because this is one of a really classic lyric, right? It's one of the best things to say to your partner, basically them being the best thing that's ever happened to you or that's ever been yours for this case. Now we go to verse 2, which is, again, a time movement from how Taylor Swift usually writes her songs. It's such a good one because from the chorus, we go to the flashback where we get the "Do you remember" part right here. But then, as we go to verse 2, we're taken to flash forward. So now we're taken to either the present day or even the future, where that speaker is seeing them taking on the world together. And there is a drawer of my things at your place. So this is actually also a really good description of the relationship, right? Because it tells us that either they would have probably moved in together, or even if they haven't moved in, if you are in a really stable relationship, you have a drawer already of your things in that other person's place, because it only makes sense if you keep on seeing each other a lot, right? So who here basically have a drawer of your things at your significant other's place? Probably there are a lot, because it's only practical to have that. And this is just a good description. Like, it's not something that you would have thought, maybe. Normally, how I would see other songs written, they're very much literal. But when Taylor writes it, it's always a bit figurative. It's always a bit, let's say, descriptive. Even such a small line like this one gives you already a context of how the relationship is. And it's just being a drawer of my things at your place in that aspect. Then you see here, you learn my secrets and you figure out why I'm guarded. So going back to the first verses, we know now already, as I said in the chorus, that the person has already let her guard down, because now she is sharing her secrets. She has a drawer of her things in the other person's place. And now that person that she is talking to, or her significant other, already knows why she is guarded. And from that, the response is, and we get more context with just this one line, saying that you say we'll never make my parents' mistakes. So from here, we can see that probably the reason why she is a flight risk with the fear of falling, who wonders why love never lasts, is because her parents probably showed her that this is how they were, that love doesn't last, that love doesn't exist. So she may have come from a broken family, or probably has seen her parents fight, and that gives us enough context to know that this is how she grew, this is what she knows, and that's the reason why she is a careful daughter from from her dad, who is a careless man, from the description in the chorus. Okay, then we go to the pre-chorus. So as you know, love isn't always rainbows and butterflies. So we're taken to the actual real life, let's say, problems that all of us would normally have. And I think this is one of the most relatable Taylor Swift line in all of her songs, because all of us have probably bills to pay and nothing figured out, right? And when you were young, what you would think is that the only problem you have is falling in love, getting that boy to like you back. But then at the end of the day, when you become an adult and you have this actual problems trying to make ends meet, you would say that this is actually the most relatable line. Having bills to pay, and actually, even if you're an adult, having nothing figured out. So these are the types of problems that they have probably encountered, and with this, it makes it hard to take, right? So even if you are in a good relationship, even if you say that you will be together forever, when these types of problems come at you, it would be really hard to take. And sometimes most of the relationships, let's say, we know, suffer because of these other problems that they encounter. So it's not always rainbows and butterflies, as I said. And then we go to yes, this is what I thought about. So even though it's hard to take, the speaker is thinking about something, which takes us to the chorus. So now, the chorus is just the same as the first one, where the speaker is reminiscing how they started, and probably convincing herself that this is the happy times. This is the reason why we fell in love, even though they had bills to pay, even though they have adult problems or family problems now. If she goes back to the time when they were sitting by the water, and the significant other actually puts his or her arm around her for the first time, it makes everything fine. It makes everything good. And then going again with you are the best thing that's ever been mine. So even though they have a lot of problems, it's enough to know that this person is hers, right? And then this was the lyrics for the first chorus. And now we're taken to another one where it's giving us more context of what happened probably in the past, where we now get, do you remember all the city lights on the water? You saw me start to believe for the first time. So this is actually good, because from here, what we get is more of, you put your arm around me for the first time. So this, the significant other has put his or her arm around her for the first time, and it's what let her guard down. So that's her point of view. But then, for the other person's point of view, that's the time that he or she saw her believe for the first time that love can exist, that love can last, and we should bother about it, right? And this is the time that she has been made a rebel by that person. And still reiterating the repetition of you are the best thing that's ever been mine, emphasizing that this person is really the best thing that's happened to her. Now we go to the bridge, which is the very iconic, really good, amazing part of Taylor Swift songs, right? And we're taken again to another timestamp at 2 a.m. So Taylor likes to use 2 a.m., 2:30 a.m. And what we see here is that the person, or Taylor or the speaker, is actually remembering the time that they had a fight at this hour of the day. And as everything was slipping right out of our hands, I ran out crying and you followed me out into the street. So this is a very descriptive storytelling as well, that we saw that the person late at night, that they are both fighting, probably normal couple problems, and then the speaker might probably have been getting tired of all of these fights and just decided to run out, right? And we get here to the part where brace myself for the goodbye, because that's all I have ever known. So at this point, it's a bit really emotional, because as you can see from the history of the person, the speaker, we know that her parents have probably struggled with these fights, these issues about love, and probably they never lasted, or they actually divorced, something like that. And coming from these words right here, brace myself for the goodbye, because that's all I've ever known. I think this is one of the best lines here. Actually, it's the best line, because it really captures the emotion of being traumatized by how you saw love as a child, and then seeing it happen for you again, right? After letting your guard down and telling yourself that this won't happen to you, you have been careful for the longest time, and then you go into this part where ah, it's still gonna happen, because that's all you've ever known. That's all it's gonna happen. And then the other person, let's say, turn things around by saying, I'll never leave you alone. So that person followed her after running away, and didn't say goodbye. Basically took her by surprise, because he or she caught up with her and told her that they will never leave her alone. So they would stay, right? And this is just really such a powerful, powerful bridge right here. It's really relatable, especially with all of her fears being laid out to us, the type of person that she is, and then having this experience just with the bridge explained. Then we go back to the chorus, and this is now basically the last chorus. But then, as classic Taylor Swift, um, let's say, writing style, what she did is she turned the perspective around. So now, being from her perspective, it's now the person that she's talking to with the you said. So this person is now telling her, I remember how it felt sitting by the water. So now we also know that person's perspective, and that person also remembers the same moment that she does in the previous chorus. And we go to, and every time I look at you, it's like the first time. So we have three different iterations of this line, which is putting your arm around me for the first time, and you saw me start to believe for the first time, and then every time I look at you, it's like the first time. So it's like saying that every time that this person is looking at her, it still feels like the first time that they fell in love. So as you can see, it's not like a complete sentence here, like first time what, or um because the next line basically is coming right after, where that person is saying, I fell in love with the careless man's careful daughter. So every time that this person is looking at her, he remembers or she remembers the feeling of falling in love with this careless man's careful daughter, and knowing that she is the best thing that's ever been mine. So it's really a good, let's say, conclusion or chorus that comes after that whole bridge, because it gives us a full circle perspective that they have this mutuality, that they feel the same thing, that they are each other's best. They are each other's, let's say, best thing that's ever happened to them. So that's how I basically see it. And we go to the pre-chorus where there is the repetition of the words hold on, hold on right here, hold on right here again, and hold on right here, telling us that they are both holding on, that no matter what the hardships are, they will make it, that they will make it last, they will never turn back. So they will remember how the rebel was made out of a careless man's careful daughter, and how they are, or you are the best thing that's ever been mine here. So this repetition of this phrase is also really a good emphasis of showing that there's no other, let's say, options, that there's no way of turning back, because this is already the best. They already have each other's best. So that's the main idea, right? And then we go to the outro where they were looking back at it and say, "Do you believe it?" So it's like something of an expression saying that we're here. It's unimaginable that we actually made it. And then going further into the future, saying that we're gonna make it. We've actually surpassed all of our problems, and we're still together, and that's what we can see as a future. So the last part, I can see it now, is such a good ending to it, because this person or the speaker who used to be afraid of love is now seeing a future with this other person, that they will make it. It's a different story from what she normally knows from her parents. That's a really good thing. All right, so that concludes our lyrical analysis of mine. So in the comments below, you can let me know how you personally relate to the song, if you agree with the analysis of, or if there's something else that I may have missed out. Please let me know. Subscribe, and for more lyrical analysis like this one, please stay tuned. Bye.